Okay, so I guess it's about the time we are ready to get started. So thanks everyone for coming. So today we have Professor Greg Measure and Stephanie Reikes from Georgia Institute of Technology to talk about bringing college mathematics to high schools, Georgia Tech's distance math program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for coming. I am Greg Mayer. I am an academic professional in the School of Math at Georgia Tech, where I teach courses and support instructors and students in the distance math program. And Stephanie and I are co-presenting this. Stephanie, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Stephanie Reikes, and I am a senior lecturer here at Georgia Tech. And Greg has been doing this a very long time, but we started a new pilot this fall semester, and I will be talking about that throughout our presentation.
Okay, and you'll see there's a cute T-Rex QR code on the slides right now. So if you want a copy of the slides, there's that. There's also something in the chat. And at the very end of our presentation, we'll have the QR code again. So multiple ways if you want to get the slides of getting them. So we'll be going over what's called the distance math program, its goals, its how it works behind the scenes, some of the nuts and bolts, and the challenges that we're working on. I see its goal primarily as being to strengthen relationships between Georgia Tech and the high school community across Georgia. And it does that through offering undergraduate courses in math to high school students across Georgia. It's a pretty big state, right? So for students, especially in the remote areas, it would take hours to get to campus, but we can reach those high schools through distance learning. And we also are relying on what's called dual enrollment. Now, this is something that is called different things in different states, but in Georgia, it's a mechanism that allows students while they're in high school to take college courses. So you can think of it as the student having two transcripts. They'll have a college transcript and a high school transcript. In fact, some of my students are taking college courses at more than one college, so they should call it multiple enrollment instead of just dual, but that's the idea. And we rely on partnerships across campus. There's several units involved in this project. The School of Math we're in charge of designing the exams, deciding which textbook we're going to use, and writing all the worksheets, etc. We also hire the instructors, teaching assistants, and provide support to all of those folks. Georgia Tech Professional Education has a team of instructional designers that we consult with on best practices in online and distance learning. They provide tech support to students and instructors, and they help in many ways in exams, which we'll get to later on. Admissions, they handle all of the application and enrollment processes over the summer. And Seismic, the Center for Education Integrating Science, Mathematics, and Computing, they have boots in the ground in the high school communities across Georgia. So as we are, for example, piloting a new course, they have contacts with high schools that might be interested and might want to get involved in our new ideas initiatives. So there's 5 courses right now in distance math. There's pre-calculus, which we piloted just last semester. And those students don't have another course yet, but in the spring semester. But spring 2026, the School of Physics is hoping to offer a trig-based physics, basically, intro to physics course. And most of our students in distance math are taking what we call year 1. So that's a sequence of courses. In the fall, it's linear algebra and multivariable calculus in the spring. If students in that sequence are not seniors, if they're juniors or sophomores, they're still in high school after they finish that sequence. So they can go on, there's some students who go on to take what we call year 2, applied combinatorics and differential equations. The funny thing about Georgia Tech is that students to take to take applied combinatorics, to take differential equations, they have to take linear algebra first. A lot of other institutions, it's the other way around, where you take multivariable calculus before linear algebra, but our linear algebra is like a prerequisite to everything. So that's why we do it the way we do it. But yeah. Okay, so in order to even just apply, there's certain things that students have to have at the go. So I'll hand it over to Stephanie to talk about what's required for pre-calculus.
Perfect. So for our pilot pre-calculus class, we just did this past fall. Students needed to complete Algebra 1 and 2 and geometry at their high school. We also looked at their GPA, so 3.5 or higher. And they also had to submit either PSAT, SAT, or ACT scores to get admitted and meet the 480, 530, and 21 requirement to get in.
For year one, students will have had to have completed AP Calculus BC in high school, of course, with a score of 4 or 5. Underlined because that's really the linchpin that makes this whole thing work. We're only taking some really good students. It's hard to support online learners, especially at the scale we're working at. So if they're fantastic students, then most students are going to do well, and most students will do well, and the program will run. Year two, basically the requirement is they have to have completed year one. If they're fantastic students, they'll be fine taking applied combinatorics in their senior year at high school, or differential equations, no problem. There's some other requirements as well. All of our students have to be Georgia residents for state funding to work, and Georgia Tech admissions, thank you admissions for doing all the hard work that you do to process the applications and decide who gets in. So enrollment. So I wasn't around in 2005, but this was, at a time when high schools barely had internet. So distance math was a kind of a pioneer in the sense that we're using technologies that not a lot of other institutions had at the time. We're looking at sending exams through UPS, video teleconferencing systems, clunky big machines to stream lectures and that sort of thing. Things have changed a lot since then. 34 high school students, and things have grown a lot since then. Year two started about 10 years later. We had enough juniors and sophomores in year one that we could start thinking about offering more courses. And then almost 10 years after that, pre-calculus. Where are we now? Well, so the gold line is year one. So right now we have just under 1,200 students in, well, right now they're taking multivariable calculus. We've almost done grading the first exam that semester. So it's a big course. Year two, growth has been a little bit slower, but it's growing steadily. We're now at about 150, 160 students. And pre-calculus is the red dot in the bottom right. That's our fall pilot, with plans to grow even further in the fall as well. So more details on the numbers, Stephanie?
Yeah, so our pre-calculus pilot, as Greg just said, we started with 28 students at two local high schools, so not too far away from Georgia Tech. Both were Title I high schools, where over 90% of the students at those high schools qualified for free lunch. And it was a mix of both juniors and seniors taking this pre-calculus class.
Right now we have about 1,100 students in year one, exactly 100 high schools. And the way dual enrollment works, we can allow homeschool students. So their exam procedures are a little bit different. But yeah, there's a small number of sophomores, but mostly it's seniors, juniors in year one. At year two, it's a smaller cohort, so not everybody's, in a position where they can finish year one in their junior year, but it's 148 students, 36 high schools. We're watching the number of juniors in that level, because right now I think it's 12 students who are juniors in year two. So that number starts going up. Maybe one day we can have a year three. We'll see. But I think 12 students is a little too small for us to guarantee that we could offer it and make it work. Impact. So this statistic that roughly half of the distance math students go on to enroll at Georgia Tech, and the next one, among just the in-state students who are admitted to an undergraduate degree, 1/6 of them have gone through our program, is why I am thankful for my position at Georgia Tech. That's an amazing number to be a part of this program is an honor. And then among our pre-calculus pilot, there are 28 students, 6 of them applied to Georgia Tech, and 1 is already admitted to Georgia Tech through early action. 1 accepted with regular decisions. So, woohoo! Okay, so more like how this whole thing works, what's going on behind the scenes, the nuts and bolts. So among the 5 courses, I'd say all of them were developed in very different ways. Linear algebra, we sat down and made Beamer LaTeX slides with a template and did voiceover recording. Differential equations was me in a past lifetime before the pandemic when I had less gray hair at the front of the room giving lectures, and we just chopped them up into 10-minute videos, right? So we've got a few other formats, but over time, we're kind of going back and fixing typos and re-recording things as well. Studios. Okay, so you may know them as recitations depending on what you call them at your institution, but at Georgia Tech, we have these things called studios, and they're usually led by a teaching assistant, and usually there's worksheets. So this is one of my teaching assistants' work. They had a worksheet and they're going through and solving exercises live because we have to. And for us to offer the courses that our high school students want to take, we have to offer these 4-credit courses that work as prerequisites to many courses on campus. By definition, they have a studio. This is one of our challenges. Okay, so you want to have a live studio? Okay, where they're high school students. They're not going to have a time block that everybody can sign up for. So whatever time we choose, some students are going to be taking AP chemistry at that time. Some high schools, their doors don't even open until 9 a.m. So we just chose a time that seemed to work for most people. But because not everybody can make it, we have to record it, which means students are going to make a decision whether or not to go to that live session or just watch the recording. Plus, they're connecting on different ways. They might have just a phone. They might have a laptop. I can see some high schools just have like a projector at the front of the room and everybody's at their desk watching the recording. So it's really hard to get active learning to work, which is why I think in year 2, we just said, look, the studios are pre-recorded. You can watch them. So over the years, we had teaching assistants record them going through examples, and nobody said anything. That's the way it's been working, and it seems to be okay. But I still like having live sessions. I enjoy getting up there and talking and meeting with some of the students for the live sessions, even though the engagement isn't as much as I would like in, say, a live session. Oh, pre-calculus, Stephanie.
Yeah, so for pre-calculus, since it was a bit of a small pilot with 2 high schools, both those high schools were on block scheduling and required the math class as first period. And so we kind of split the week into 3 days synchronous live sessions with either myself or a TA from Georgia Tech. And then 2 days a week were asynchronous, but they were in the classroom together with their high school teacher there. So we kind of split the course up like that throughout the semester.
Now, exams. This is a whole machine by itself. So imagine we have 100 high schools in year one across Georgia. They're not all going to take the exam at the same time. There's going to be a need for makeup exams because last minute emergencies or time conflicts, et cetera. So all these courses we're offering, we have to make several versions of exams. We want also these exams to be paper-based because they're receiving equivalent credit. I mean, what's going to appear on their transcript is just going to be the course number, their grade, and when they took it, not did they take the distance version or the version on campus. And the version on campus has paper exams worth a large percent of those grades. So we're still doing paper exams. And this is how it works. We create many versions of the exam. Professional education then distributes them to all the high schools across the program. A teacher, someone at the school, a school official, will distribute the exams, proctor it, and then scan it. And then professional education does, manages the intake to make sure they have all the paper copies and pages aren't missing, et cetera, uploaded into Gradescope. And then our army of teaching assistants will go in and grade using something called Gradescope. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a pretty powerful tool that we have at Georgia Tech that can do some grading semi-automatic with artificial intelligence. So it saves time for some questions. So that's for our in-person proctored exams. So year one and year two, we have like 2 or 3 of these things. And plus a final exam as well, which is tricky because at Georgia Tech it's a 3-hour event, your final exam, but these high school students don't have 3 hours, so that's fun too. We also, because it's hard to get those exams scanned and registered into the system, we're limited to the number of pages we can have, right? And so we've had to rethink what a linear algebra exam can look like. So we rely heavily on short answer, true, false, multiple choice. This is just the first page of our linear algebra exam. You see, we give a tiny number of points for just filling in their name, because if they don't, it's pretty hard to figure out who didn't write their name when we don't even know which high school they're at. Exams using Gradescope, and there's many challenges. We have some homeschool students. We need to have a process for makeup exams, limited number. So designing a multivariable calculus course, to have practice exams and quizzes and things leading up to the exam, where the emphasis is on more the concepts rather than showing your work-long computation, has been a challenge. Matching scan errors, pages are upside down, scan too late, hard to read, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anything that can go wrong, we've probably seen it at least once. So there's that. But we have tried honor lock in pre-calculus. I'll let Stephanie share her experiences with that.
Yeah, so this past semester, as you can probably have seen, the year one numbers have really grown. And so Georgia Tech Professional Education thought, okay, well, we're starting a new pilot. Maybe we should experiment a little bit on how we are doing exams. So I normally give 4 exams in pre-calculus plus a final exam. And I thought, okay, let's split this up. Let's give this a shot with honor lock. So I did 2 exams with honor lock and 2 in-person. The in-person exams are exactly as Greg described, where we just email the exam to the high school proctors the exam, returns it, gets it back to us to upload to Gradescope. And then the honor lock exams, we use Canvas at Georgia Tech, so we're able to then make sure that the exam is proctored via honor lock. It did come with a lot of challenges. I could probably go on and on probably for an hour about some of those challenges, but maybe I'll just mention 1 or 2. Our main obstacle was because we are working with Title I high schools, many of the students were using laptops issued from that high school that did not have honor lock and enabled. So it took a little bit of communication from IT at Georgia Tech to IT at the local high schools to get honor lock even working on the laptops at the high school. So that was kind of a challenge for the first exam. And then other just like little challenges with honor lock not always being 100% working, getting errors like there's not enough light in the classroom when they're like, taking the photo of the student. And then just other issues of, if one student takes the test in the morning and is using scratch paper, and then another student takes the test in the afternoon, and person one passes scratch paper off to person number two. Obviously, there's a little bit of cheating going on that we can discover. So those were some of the challenges from this past semester. And the final exam, as Greg mentioned, normally final exams at Georgia Tech are 3 hours, but high school students have other classes and can't sit and take our final for 3 hours. So we split that into 2 parts or 2 days. And so my final last semester was portion 1 on honor lock, portion 2 in person, paper pencil.
For textbooks, they're also a little bit of a challenge. We're using the same textbooks that they use for the on-campus versions. So these are publisher textbooks. The challenge is that there's a state requirement that students cannot be expected to buy course materials if they're dual enrolled. So we have to have a way of paying for these books and distributing these books, which is a bit of a challenge for us. So August every year is a busy time, and we've been slowly over the years building out curriculum to transition to OER. Oh yeah, pre-calculus as well, Stephanie.
Yeah, so I think it's been about 2, maybe 3 years post-COVID. I've gone to no longer making my students purchase the textbook. Just it's expensive. So when I did this pilot, I did the same thing. So I've been teaching the same course about 7, 8 years now. So just slowly over time, I've recorded videos and really just have built and made my own content. So I no longer make students purchase the book, and same with this pilot. So all the curriculum has been hand developed by myself, and I've had some student assistants over the years assist me as well. So I have, typed notes, worksheets, activities that I've built in Overleaf. Some of them I've turned into puzzles and games and crosswords. And then studio work, often use Gradescope, and try to make some things that I have auto grade either in Gradescope or Canvas. But the original content, of course, at one point I was using my math lab, and the curriculum is based off of, pre-calculus, a unit circle approach from Bratti, etc. Is where the content from the course comes from.
All right, yeah, I think we're almost at time, so I'll go through the last couple slides pretty quickly. But these courses would only work at the numbers we have with a huge team of assistants. So we have head TAs, lecture assistants, graders, and curriculum developers who all have various roles within these courses. Just to give you an idea, for example, pre-calculus, we had a TA last fall and a couple of people helping us, adapt the curriculum for this particular course. Year 1 is our largest enrollment course. We have a TA, a team of lecture assistants, graders, and a larger team of curriculum developers helping us make that transition to OER. What are we working on these days? Well, our publisher textbooks don't teach the courses exactly the way we want to. Students can't be required to pay for textbooks. The time it takes to make multiple exam versions, and yeah, courses, policies, things change over time, so we need to re-record. So we are relying on large teams of assistants to make things in web work, open educational resources. We're lucky that we're surrounded by a lot of really talented CS majors who know things about large language models and AI. So we have teams using that to make curriculum. And things we can't rely so much on student assistant teams for is supporting high school teachers as they support the course in various ways. We're working on streamlining our systems, communicating with schools, and scaling our pre-calculus enrollment. Well, collaborations and social media. Through this work, there has been some unexpected, benefits, impact. We've used our curriculum in other courses to develop other, a 4-part linear algebra series. There's an open course project with a link to that you can read all about. Because we are ahead of the game, I like to think, there's other units on campus like physics and computer science that have built on our success to offer their courses to high school students as well. We also have a Georgia Intern Fellowship for Teachers, which was a summer enrichment program for pre-calculus teachers that was offered on campus, meant to also strengthen relationships between the Institute and high schools. And there's our link to our newly created, we've only been in the game for a couple of months now, our social media page, and I wanted to leave some time for questions. So I think we have a couple minutes for that. There's a copy of our slides, a link to it with that cute dinosaur T-Rex QR code. But Stephanie and I would love to take any questions that you might have through email as well.
Thank you. Thank you. This is